Howdy, my name is Nonat, and in case you're living under a rock in the Pathfinder 2e sphere, a few weeks back, Paizo dropped a bombshell of an announcement, and that is that Pathfinder 2nd Edition is getting remastered. As we are approaching its, 3rd year anniversary? 4th year anniversary? I don't know, the last 5 years of my life have been a blur. Paizo has decided, hey, we made some mistakes along the way, there's a few things we want to correct, so let's go ahead and do that. They are going to be publishing a whole new core rulebook, advanced player's guide, bestiaries, and game mastery guide. However, it's all going to be way more organized, way more errata with both the modern errata we've gotten over the years, as well as some interesting changes to the system. Now, they have very clearly stated that if you already own the game, you will not need to buy these books, and all the changes that go into them are going to be available for free on websites like Archives of Nethys. But it has my little theory brain turning. You know, if they're taking this opportunity to fix things that people don't like, or things that they wish they had done differently, what could that mean for all of our favorite classes? Like, we already know that they're going to be reorganizing the rule books. You know, they've heard people complaining over the last 3 years that the worst thing about Pathfinder 2nd Edition is the core player's handbook. So when we get Player Core 1 this October, I'm excited to see not only how if it's going to be better organized, but what changes are we going to see to the class. So I thought it would be fun to make this video as my slow return back to making content, because I haven't posted a video in a few weeks. Thank you to everyone who gave me the time and the support to get through this really rough time in my life, but I'm proud to say I am on my way back. Probably not going to be 3 videos a week. I haven't returned to live streaming yet, but I'm going to be putting stuff out when I can because I miss it. I miss talking to you. I miss talking to this weird metallic microphone in front of my face that then translates to me yelling at you over your computer. That was a really long intro way to say, hey, welcome to my theories on what I want to see changed in every single class in Pathfinder 2e Remastered coming out late this year. And hey, I'm just saying, like, I know I'm not back on video yet and you're still staring at PNG Nonat, but a return like this deserves a like on the video, right? You know, you should just like scroll down there, hit the little thumbs up button, maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we're getting real close to that 50,000 mark, and nothing would give me the motivation to come back to this full force than cracking that 50k mark. Anyway, let's talk classes. Going in alphabetical order, we are going to start with the Alchemist, probably the most problematic class in the greater community's opinion. If you know me, I don't have any problems with the Alchemist personally, but it must mean something when a great percentage of players really steer away from the Alchemist or just dislike its overall gameplay style, and it usually boils down to one thing: accuracy. Alchemists get garbage progression in their accuracy, plus it doesn't use their primary ability score. You know, alchemists are intelligence-based characters, but if you're throwing bombs, you're using dexterity. So there's a few changes here that I think would be refreshing to see in the remaster. Higher accuracy is first and foremost. I do believe alchemists should probably get the same progression as a standard martial class. Your rangers, your barbarians, your monks, give them expert at level 5, give them master at level 13, maybe even legendary at 19. But, and this is a huge but, if accuracy goes up, front-loaded damage needs to go down. Because alchemists, if they're going to be just as accurate as everybody, need something to hold them back, because they still have access to so many more damage types than something like a ranger or a barbarian. You know, your ranger might be able to do piercing and slashing damage, maybe bludgeoning if you're weird and you have a hammer. An alchemist can still do piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning with a basic weapon, but they can also do fire, electric, cold, poison, acid. They can do all of these damage types, so they should not have the same front-loaded damage capability as someone like a ranger stuck to fewer damage types. So, here's my thought. Reduce the base damage on most alchemical bombs, but increase the persistent damage. Bombs already apply persistent damage on a normal hit, not a critical hit for a lot of them. You throw an acid flask, it's going to inflict persistent acid damage. Start putting that persistent damage on almost all of the alchemist bombs. Your cold, your electric, your fire, all of those. Put at least 1 or 2 persistent damage on them and make the alchemist the king of persistent damage. Oh, you're fighting 6 trolls? Cool, that alchemist is gonna whip out their alchemist fire and start lighting each of them on fire, and by the 3rd round of combat, if they're still standing, they're ticking for weakness boosted persistent damage on multiple targets. Maybe let higher level alchemist bombs inflict persistent damage on the splash targets too. That would be amazing. So increase alchemist accuracy, reduce front load damage, but give them more and more persistent damage, because that would give alchemists a really cool class identity if their whole gimmick is just making people drip in acid, or burn, or electrocute, or freeze to death, or inhale poison to eat them away from the inside. Let's move on to the next class. Next up, the Barbarian, which is actually being considered an advanced class in the remaster. It's going to be coming out in Player Core 2, but mainly because they needed to put 8 in Book 1, 8 in Book 2. Player Core 2 isn't going to be inherently more advanced, but I think it's also going to be inherently more advanced. It's going to have your Investigator, your Oracle, your Witch, your Barbarian, your Swashbuckler. All of those are going in Player Core 2, and the simpler basic stuff is going in Player Core 1. And Barbarian got slid into Player Core 2. I think the only big fix the Barbarian needs is overhauling and fixing some of the weaker instincts, namely Fury and Superstition. Fury is worthless. Outside of flavor, there is no reason in the game to play a Fury Barbarian. The only benefit is an extra level 1 feat. And level 1 Barbarian feats are garbage. I think Fury needs a complete from the ground up overhaul, and Superstition doesn't need a big overhaul. I like what they're doing. I like that they're playing with the different interactions of magics against one another, but the big thing is the Anathema. I know the Anathema is easy enough to ignore, but for the sake of rules as written, I think the fact that if your cleric heals you when you said don't, you lose your powers if you keep traveling with them. Like, rules as written, if you say, don't heal me, and they cast heal on you, you can no longer rage. You no longer get any rage benefits. I think it's dumb. I think Superstition needs tweaks, and Fury needs an overhaul. The Bard. I think the big thing with the Bard, it's honestly in a good place right now. The action economy, the effects, it feels impactful to a team, especially for a larger party, but I think each of the subclasses needs a little bit more class identity. Something just a little push to separate the enigma from the polymath, because let me tell you, I don't know the difference. They give you a level 1 feat and a spell in your spellbook. But the one that needs the most help, in my opinion, is the Warrior Muse. Now, obviously, you can't just make it as good as a martial class, but I think there's room to play with it. It's so inherently weak, again, similar to the Alchemist, because it doesn't use its key ability score. If the Warrior Muse could, say, use their Charisma on attack rolls, still use Strength on damage rolls, but maybe let them use Charisma to attack with, that might be all the fix they need. Give them that +1, because their Charisma's always going to be higher than their Strength, unless they take a dip in Charisma to get 16 Strength or something. But they're never going to have an 18. They're always going to be behind, and I think maybe fixing the Warrior Muse by giving them Charisma to attack rolls would feel great. The Champion. I think they should remove alignment from champions. Oh hey, guess what they are? They are removing alignment from Pathfinder 2e entirely, if you weren't aware. Alignment is being removed as any kind of mechanic, and instead, champions are just going to pick a subclass, and they'll have their basic tenets to follow, the basic things that allow them to be that kind of champion. But what this might mean is, as long as you follow the tyrant tenets that say to crush those beneath you and assert your dominance, maybe you can be lawful neutral or even lawful good, as long as you are still asserting your dominance and proving yourself, because a tyrant lawful good champion sounds freaking amazing. I'm talking like Hell Knight style, you know? A lawful good Hell Knight who is doing everything for the good of the people, for the good of the law, but won't let anyone stand in their way. That would be awesome. I would love that. The Cleric. What do we want?
More subclasses!
When do we want them? probably in October when the book comes out. Yeah, give the cleric a third subclass, please, Paizo, please. It's had 2 subclasses for 3 years. You know how many subclasses Oracle has? I don't, but it's more than 2. Also, fix the domain initiate spells. So many of them are garbage, you know? Off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I think the gluttony one is like really funny, but it's not that good. So many of them do like nothing on a success, or even on a success or a failed saving throw, it'll just inflict like fascinated, which is just worthless. So please improve some of those low-level domain spells, okay? Okay, love you. Kisses. The Druid? Honestly, the Druid's in a great place right now. I don't think it needs a lot of fixes. The subclasses are similar to the Bard, and yet they still have way more identity, especially things like the Wild Order and the Animal Order. Sure, Wild Order just gets a focus spell, but it's an entire character built around that focus spell with feats to augment it. You know, the Bard doesn't get much like that outside of a couple of little song augmenter feats, which are very few and far between. And overall, I think word cleanup is the best thing that could happen to the Druid right now. There's a lot of hearsay about what does and doesn't apply to Wild Shape, what you can apply from weapons and proficiency and magic items, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. I'd say if you can make that all cleaner, Druid will be fine. The Fighter. Find a way to reduce the accuracy just a little bit without removing their identity. You know, they don't even need to be brought down on level with everybody else. I just think a flat +2 is insane. If you can find a way to work it so that the fighter just ends up with a flat +1 over everybody, and maybe some other option. Maybe they always get another level 1 feat or something like that, so they have more combat options. That would be perfect balance. Give them that little bit of accuracy bump, but not a full +2. That +2 is insane. I know people have rapped on me for hating on the fighter for 3 years now, but I stand by it. In every single campaign I've played over 3 years, that is no less than 5 different campaigns, the fighter has always been the MVP, with a great sword, with a great axe. If a fighter is using a D10 or D12 weapon and they're critically hitting every other attack, they are out damaging everybody else in the party. It is wild. And as someone who has played that fighter, it's fun, but man, does it feel bad for everybody else. The Investigator's also in a really great place, similar to the Druid. I think the only thing I'd like to see is maybe replacing their knockoff sneak attack with something a little more unique. You know, they've already got their strategic strike, which lets them devise a stratagem, which lets them use their intelligence in place of attack rolls and stuff. I think they could go even farther with that. Keep using the intelligence, and rather than just saying, it's sneak attack but half the damage of a rogue, maybe give them something a little more unique. That feels like something that was left over from Pathfinder 1E, where the Investigator basically was a fancy rogue. The Monk, phenomenal design, doesn't need a change. So many stances, so many options, all giving unique benefits, yet none feeling outright better than the others. You've got your mountain stance for strength monks, you've got your crane stance for defensive monks, you've got your dragon stance for big number monks, you've got your tiger and wolf stances for flanking monks, you've got your stumbling stance for fainting monks, you've got your monastic archery. All of these right at level 1, all available for your monk, all equally good. Monk is perfect. Don't you change a thing, Paizo. Unless you think of something that I didn't think of that would be worth changing. Then change it. But don't hurt my boy, the monk. I love them. The Oracle. Oh, just simplify it. You don't need to remove a whole lot of mechanics. You don't need to change a whole lot. Just make it easier to absorb. Combine the mystery and the curse into one class feature. Please, I beg of you, because picking your subclass and then your subclass giving you a whole other separate feature which affects your character, but only when you use it's a nightmare to explain and understand. And I think the Oracle works as a class. It's just like a 15-foot high wall you have to climb over to actually play it and enjoy it. Also, fix the archetype. The Oracle archetype doesn't work. All it does is give you penalties. It's just worse than a Divine Sorcerer archetype. Unless you're using it for flavor, which is what I did, because I wanted my fighter to have an Oracle archetype so he could talk to his ancestors in his head. That was fun. But yeah, seriously, the archetype did nothing for me. The Ranger. Similar to the Monk, I think it's in a near-perfect place. Maybe find a way to nerf Flurry a little bit and buff Outwit in some way, but even if you don't, I think that's fine. The whole Ranger class is in a great place. Top damage dealer against a single target in the game, that's how it should be. Same with the rogue. Still love it. Skill junkie to the extreme, become an expert or master in almost every single skill in the game, and just outshine your friends at everything out of combat, and then hide behind them when someone pulls out a sword. Doesn't really need anything. The sneak attack feels good, their damage is good enough that even if they're lower on average than other players, it's only by a little bit, and it doesn't feel unfair because they're so useful outside of combat. The Sorcerer, I really hate repeating myself, but I think it goes to show how well designed PF2 is. The Sorcerer doesn't need a lot of changes either. The bloodlines are all so varied, they all give a distinct feeling with their bloodline effect as well as their unique focus spells, which are so much better than the Cleric Domain spells. Almost every single Sorcerer bloodline focus spell feels great right from the get-go. It's nice to have something that doesn't use a spell slot that you can use every combat. Sorcerers feel amazing to play. I absolutely love them. Swashbuckler does need one change, and it's sort of an overarching change that I don't know how easy it would be to implement, but there needs to be more of a reason to keep panache over just spamming finishers. Having played a short campaign with a Swashbuckler, they never really felt a need to hold on to their panache. Sure, they could deal 1 extra damage this turn, or they could deal 2d6 extra damage this turn and then just tumble through again. When you have an 18 dexterity, do you know how easy it is to tumble through every enemy in the game? You're better off just using 1 finisher per turn, tumbling through, and then, oh no, did you roll a 2 and fail to tumble through? Well, guess what? You used your finisher. You're not attacking again. Just tumble through again, or if you're a braggart, demoralize them. Swashbucklers get caught in an interesting loop of just tumble through. Did that work? Finisher. Did it fail? Tumble through. Did it work? Finisher. Rinse and repeat. Make sure you have panache at the end of your turn so you can stab someone next turn. There needs to be more reason to keep that panache, and whether that's upgrading precise strikes or giving some kind of bonus elsewhere, I think that would be the fix it needs. The Witch. The Witch has been confirmed to be getting one of the biggest overhauls of every class in the game, and I think that's good. As it stands right now, the Witch is a wizard with a cat. And wizards can get a cat for 1 feat. The Witch's cat is just slightly cooler and smarter and doesn't die. Honestly, witches need identity. Aside from their focus spells, there's nothing that sets them apart from the wizard. They feel like a wizard with a different coat of paint, and they need that special something. I don't know what that is. I really have no idea, because witch and wizard have always sort of been synonyms for me. I don't know how they're going to change them, but maybe we'll find out in the remaster, because the Witch is getting heavy fixes, and I'm excited to see what that entails. And finally, the Wizard. Not much change needed, really. Maybe if they want to add some spice to it, they'll add some new first level feats, because as it stands, Wizards have the most boring level 2 and 1 feats in the game. You don't even get a feat at level 1 unless your subclass gives you one, and then at level 2, you've got some really lackluster options. You know, Silence metamagic is kind of okay, Reach and Widen spell are cool, but overall, I'd like to see some more character-specific feat options for the wizard, something that upgrades prestidigitation, or does something cool with your familiar, or something like that, outside of just, you know, enhanced familiar or a cantrip expansion. You know, everything they get is very black and white, cut and dry. I'd like to see a little more flavor. And that's it, the 16 classes who will be affected by the Pathfinder 2e remaster. As it stands, Magus, Summoner, Gunslinger, Inventor, Psychic, and Thaumaturge are not being added to the remaster. Will they be remastered someday? Maybe, possibly, who knows, but as it stands right now, they're not going to be in the 2 new books, and they've come out so recently, just in the last year or two, I don't know if they need any kind of update. They're all in a good place, there's some little changes here and there, but overall, I think the remaster is going to be a good call. I know there's a lot of people out there saying, no, they're just trying to get me to buy another book. And to that I say no. They're releasing all of it for free. It's on Archives of Nethys. If you want a physical copy to put on your bookshelf of the new books, yes, you will. But that's your prerogative. That has nothing to do with the state of the game. So, I'm excited. Paizo, I think this is an awesome call. I'm really looking forward to October, and I'm really looking forward to making more videos again for you guys. Sincerely, thank you. If you've been with me for a month, if you've been with me for 3 years, that's amazing. I wouldn't be where I am without y'all. You let me do what I love for a living, and I never take that for granted a day in my life. So, thank you everyone so much for watching. I'll be making some interesting videos going forward. I don't know exactly what I'm going to cover, because part of me doesn't really want to cover a whole bunch more stuff, because we don't know what's getting remastered. You know, I'd hate to make a guide to something, and then have the rules change in 4 months. Also, when October comes out, I'm going to need to go back through all my old videos and put old or outdated on a lot of them. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm going to be finding some stuff. If I happen to upload stuff that isn't necessarily Pathfinder 2e directly, maybe I'll play around with some stuff just to see how it feels. That's why. It's because I'm waiting until October for the remaster to come out. If I happen to upload a video that isn't Pathfinder, I promise it's not because I hate Pathfinder. So thank you all for everything. I'll see you hopefully sooner rather than later. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, know Nat once.